So welcome everybody to From Rock Bottom to Badass. And today I have my new friend Derek. And so I'm going to let him introduce himself to you guys. Derek, who are you?
Hello, everybody. So yes, my name is Derrick Michaud, and I live in the Memphis, Tennessee area. And I am a recovering alcoholic, and met Rachel through a Facebook group looking for a guest on my channel. And we just recorded yesterday. It went well. So now I'm on her podcast. And, I wanted her story. And then now Rachel's been nice enough to invite me on her platform to get my story. So I'm glad to be here. Thanks, Rachel.
You're welcome. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the identity of you. What kind of things can you put after the words I am that are true about you?
I am anxious. I am honest. I am hardworking. I am an entrepreneur. I think you can relate to that, Rachel. I try to be fun.
You are fun.
I'm definitely goofy. I'm a single full-time dad of a 13-year-old girl, so Goofy is my middle name. And so there you go. I am a father.
Mm-hmm.
I am from Maine originally. I am sitting in my living room. So I don't want to, I could say a lot of different things, but that's a neat, I like that approach, asking someone like that. That's cool.
Yeah. I think it's powerful what people choose to put after those words. And it just says a lot about who we are. So, are you ready for the big one?
Wow, let's go. Why waste any time?
What on earth have you been through?
So I grew up, and notice when I said I am anxiety or anxiousness, I said I am anxious, came up first. So notice when you asked me, I am what, the first thing I said was, now I'm not anxious now. I'm actually rather comfortable, but anxiety is my number one killer for me that I suffered with at a very young age, and because I know your story now, Rachel, we can relate in the sense that the anxiety is what drove the addiction in a big way. Of course, the byproduct of that is depression, which I have my fair share of. Yeah. And I grew up in a very intense household that was abusive, mostly verbally, a lot of yelling and fighting and between my mom and grandparents, and just a lot of chaos in my childhood. Only child, very young mother who was an alcoholic. And it just was a very anxious environment in a big way. So that from birth, that was just molded me, and ingrained that anxiety in me. But at the time, I didn't know what the word anxiety was. I just a very shy kid, socially, especially. And, that's just the kind of kid I was. Well, of course, you become a teenager and you start hanging out with friends and you have your first beer, right? And I did a video about this on my channel where, in retrospect, I can look at that one day and realize, oh yeah, I was an alcoholic immediately, because I'll go deeper in this story because it's the first, right? Yeah. So I'm with some friends and we're at a little party, and me and a couple friends are the younger ones, and then there's older people at the party that have the beer, right? And they're the ones that they're not even 21 yet, but they knew the person to buy the stuff for them.
Yeah.
And I was given 2 beers, and I was like, all right, and instantly just loved it. It made me feel chill. Well, when I look back on it, I remember this. I remember that I had my 2 beers done before my buddies were even halfway through their first one. So Okay, that's why I ended up being a binge drinker, and falling into place with being a binge drinker. It makes sense now. And then, and anyone that has any kind of addiction, whether it's alcohol or drugs, especially I had a small history with cocaine, and when you run out, man, it's hell on earth because you're out, and it's such a crappy feeling. So I can look back at my 14-year-old self, and I was pissed off, I was anxious, I was bummed, I was all the emotions you feel when I ran out, and begged my older buddy for one more beer, and he finally gave me one just to shut me up. So I look back on that, I was like, well, there you go, that says it all right there, right?
Yeah.
And but a typical teenager where I would party, we'd have our parties, and the drinking really didn't become a problem. Well, honestly, it became ugly in my 30s, but I was just the party guy, Frank the Tank, if you will. Like I could outdrink everybody, and I'm the last one standing, and that was just kind of how I was, especially through my 20s, and then now going out on the weekends. It was just a lot of partying going on, but yeah, and then it carries into my adulthood. We can get to that point too, but I don't know if you had a follow up or anything.
Yeah, no, everything that you've been through.
Awesome.
That story.
So I am a musician, so we'll do the I am thing. So it's a big player in this because I started playing when I was 13. My grandfather is one that taught me some guitar, some chords and stuff. I grew up with my grandparents, going back to having a young mom, lived with my grandparents. Anyway, so I get into it, and then I start playing bass guitar when I'm 16 years old because my cousin had a band, and I was jealous, and I wanted to be in the band. And
Yeah.
his bass player was older, and he graduated high school before everyone else, so I became a bass player just to be in the band. I was like, I'll play bass, I don't care.
Yeah.
Well, this really comes into place year 2000, 2001. I decided I want to do this for a living, which is a grand statement to make when you're that young. But I knew I wanted to earn money doing it. I wanted to play in bands that played bars and clubs and weddings and make some money doing it. So began the 20-year carrot chase, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I was good at it. I was blessed with good ears, so I can learn songs by just listening to them. So I became a musician, started working in bands, and that became my number one focus. And all my other jobs to help supplement the income came second. Those were all secondary, just for the sake of having the flexibility to be able to be a musician. Well, I get to a point in my life, I'm 27 years old, and I decide to move to Nashville. And I move to Nashville because that's where you go, right? If you want to, the joke I say is you don't move to Nebraska to start a music career.
Yeah.
Right?
Nashville is it.
Right. If you want to grow corn, Nebraska is all about that, right? So me and a buddy move, and by this time my drinking is still just a binge drinker, and especially on the weekends, and hitting it hard once in a while on a weeknight, but and smoking a lot of pot stuff. So I get to Nashville in October of 2005, start waiting tables at an Applebee's, and quickly realize the entire wait staff's on cocaine.
Oh shit.
Or Xanax, or lower tabs, or oxys. Everyone's
they were fucked up.
At
the Applebee's.
Because everyone's in their own little circles and hush, 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 this, that, and the other thing. And then I start getting to know everyone, and they're doing blow in the bathroom. I mean, it's just like, I was like, I want in. I want
difference between an addict and a non-addict. The addict is like, I want in, and the non-addict's like, I gotta get out of here.
No, I want in. I felt like, FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yeah.
I done coke once years prior to this, just once, and liked it. But now I'm like, I want some, So I started like, I just threw myself in that circle, and I was a prime candidate because I'm still just a traveling Wilbury, like, let's party. I'm all about it. So began my 18-month love affair with cocaine, as I call it, and still my favorite thing. Like, looking back on it, leading up to this through my 20s, I did acid, I did ecstasy, I did mushrooms, smoked tons of weed, I did it all, right? But it was all just like in moments. I didn't become addicted to acid. I don't suggest anyone getting addicted to that shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Melt your brain.
But alcohol was my thing. Well, now cocaine becomes my thing, and I love it because of the sensation. I don't want to trigger anyone.
Right.
I want to put that in the front here. I don't mean to trigger anyone here, but just the act of doing it, and it made me so I could drink more. How special was that?
Right.
I can stay up longer now. So so there's that. Well, while this is happening, I end up getting a real job as a musician. I start touring in a casino variety band where we play casinos like 45 weeks out of the year, travel the country, live in hotels, and now I'm just thrusted in the world of party. I'm living in casinos.
Yeah.
Living in casinos. I can honestly say this: I never did or took cocaine with me. I never did it on the road. I never took it with me.
Yeah.
But I made up for that with a lot of drinking. Now I'm drinking 7 nights a week. You play your set. It's 11, maybe midnight, in a casino that serves alcohol 24/7.
Yeah.
I'm in heaven. What are you talking about? But now coming home off being on the road for like a month with a little bit of cake, a little bit of cheese in the wallet, some cash, and I'm calling my connections 2 hours out, and I have like 2 weeks off. So now I have a 2-week break before I go on the road again. So I have money and time. Not a good, not a good mixture. So that's when the cocaine problem got really bad, because it went from buying a little bit here and just going out for the night to buying large amounts. And I was not the one to save some for later, if you know what I mean. Like, it was, I got it, I'm doing it. So that's when I started doing the up for 3-day bullshit and continuing to drink. And it was always like another phone call in the middle of the night to get more. So but I can't remember the exact moment or how it all happened, but eventually, thankfully, I was like, I'm done with this shit. The alcohol was always there, but I detached from that group of people. I wasn't working with them anymore. It was affecting my gig, because what would happen is,
Go into that more. How did it all affect you? Right? How did going through all of these things change you as a person? Like, from who you were before? I know you were young.
Yeah.
Started drinking.
I started drinking. The cocaine made me social. I should probably add that. And that was the other factor in it, because being a more introverted person, alcohol helps you open up, right? But now cocaine made me confident. I was like, I felt normal.
Yeah.
But then running out and coming down again, I don't want to trigger people, but god damn, it sucks. So then depression was worse. Paranoia was worse. Just my physical health worse. I mean, staying up for 3 days on a diet of cocaine and beer, that doesn't do well for your system. So and it was it was a vicious cycle. So I'd come home for a break and have some good money. And by the end of my break, I'd have no money left and be just exhausted. Plenty of times I would end a binge and then not sleep and then just go meet the band and get in the van and hit the road. So now I'm traveling from Nashville to Denver in a van after being up for 3 days. And, and it was just awful. It was just miserable. I felt like shit. My attitude sucked, it caused problems. So I eventually just walked away from that. I was able to just get away from the people. That was the key. Just get away from the availability as much as possible. But the drinking continued for sure.
What was and so you say you don't know why, like there was no like one triggering moment that was like, okay, now I've gone too far, like now I'm done. You just got tired?
Yeah. I have a pivotal moment with my drinking story, but I can't, when I look back on it, I can't think of that one moment where I said I was done. Every time I woke up from that 13-hour sleep and with a bloody nose in the shower, I was done.
Yeah.
Fuck this shit, I'm done. But then, 2 days later, another cycle. And that's how I operated. But yeah, eventually I think I just felt like it was time. I got tired of it. I wasn't, so I wish I had a pivotal story for that, but I honestly don't, which is a blessing that I was able to just kind of walk away from that stuff.
What do you think kept you sane or like kept you like surviving emotionally and stuff like throughout those experiences?
Well, it was nice. As much as it sucks sometimes going back on the road, strung out, broke, the 4 months or sometimes not 4 months, the 4 weeks, sometimes 6 weeks that I'd be on the road. Remember I said I never took it with me. I never did it out there. I never saw, it was like, get me out of Nashville, get me the fuck out of this place. And I always had those moments of detach. Yeah. I think as I'm saying this out loud, that was probably a big factor. I was able to, I had these pockets of time where I was like, I'm out, peace. Like, not only am I not around the drug, but I'm away from those people. I'm positive if I would have tried, I could have found it out there, but I didn't. Yeah. I was, it was always some comfort of running away. I was escaping. So after, 4 6 weeks of not doing it, then I'd be like all clear and feeling strong, and then, hooking up the deal as soon as I get home. So, but yeah, so I think that might have had a factor in that.
For sure. Yeah. So can you move into like the recovery part and the spiritual part of your journey? How did it start getting better?
Well, the alcohol continues for quite some time after this, so one of the things that's kind of pivotal in my whole life to where I'm not at now is, I'm living in Nashville, but there's a lot of casinos in Tunica, Mississippi, which is just south of Memphis, where I'm at now. And look, I wasn't chasing cocaine, but I was chasing booze and women, right? And when I was out on the road, so being out here was on the road at the time, and met a woman, and we did what we did, and I did what we did, and we do what we do out there on the road. And I was that guy. I was that musician that musicians are so terrified to become. And that is the guy that gets a call and, oh, by the way, you're a father. Oh, I was that guy. Yeah, it wasn't a knock on the door and here's your baby. It was a call that says you need a DNA test. So.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So total blessing though, so I did it, and yep, father of a girl, and hadn't met her. She was 11 months old when I found out.
Oh,
Yeah. So I'll bring this up because this is really when, okay, dude, like, what are you gonna do? My dad bolted when I was 2 years old, and I didn't want to do that. As terrified as I was, I'm not being that guy. So, I went all in as far as I could because I am living in Nashville, traveling musician. I got this career. My daughter lives 3.5 hours west of me in Memphis. So I balanced that as best I could, going to see her on my weeks off. And then eventually the band ended. Everything died down. And I was at this crossroads where my job was coming to an end. And by this time, I kind of like somewhat built a relationship with the mom. Because mind you, I spent 2 nights with a woman, if you know what I mean, right?
mm,
I didn't know her.
yeah.
But when we started co-parenting with each other as best we could, then there was something there. But batshit crazy. And I had, I really had no reason to try to start with something with her, but I felt like it was the right thing to do. And I moved. So not only did I move to Memphis to be with my daughter, I moved in with her mom.
That's
So
huge.
like overnight, I was unemployed and a husband, and I didn't get married, but husband, father, unemployed, new home, new circle of friends, left all my friends in Nashville. It was like very intense. So just at least the alcohol was, whew, I mean, if I could have just, injected it into my veins, I would have.
Right.
So this comes into play in a big way. So the drinking gets really bad. It gets critical. I get out of the house after a couple of years. I can't live with this person anymore. It just never worked out, nor should it have. I really shouldn't have done that. I could have moved here to be closer to my daughter, but I shouldn't have jumped into something like that intensely. So I continue to get my own place. I'm a musician. I'm trying to play local bars, and then I have all these other jobs to supplement that income. And so the first big thing is I get a DUI in 2012. I got in a little fender bender, and I was wasted. I was blacked out. I don't even remember.
Oh, shit.
I barely remember the night, so I spent a night in jail, and that was awful. And I get a lawyer, get things set up. We start continuing the case. So I have time to save my money for probation and just get my ducks in a row. I'm drinking and driving again in a month.
Yeah.
It was not the wake up call that I needed. So I get through all that. A year later, I continue it for a year, and finally have my court date. I spent enough money to get it expunged. The only thing I had to do was, cover fines, the probation fees, obviously my lawyer. I had to, it cost a lot of money to get something like that expunged, several $1,000s.
Mhm.
And at the time, I had some jobs that were feeding me well, so I was able to pay it off. So I go to probation. It's 6 months. It's 3 mandatory drug tests and alcohol tests. I'm like, okay. So I pay up all at the front end. So after my 3rd test, I'm 4.5 months in. So I have 6 weeks left. And the guy's like, look, you're paid up. You've done your tests, man. You're great. You're good to go. I was like an ideal guy that just took care of the shit, and they didn't have to chase me for money. They let me go 6 weeks early. 2 weeks later, I'm drinking and driving again.
Dude.
See where this is going?
Yeah.
It's a problem. None of those things woke me up.
Yeah.
None of those things woke me up. So some time passes, and the drinking becomes more weeknights. By this time, I'm working in a warehouse, Pfizer pharmaceutical warehouse distribution center. So here I am now in a warehouse full of drugs.
Oh,
I never had problems,
the irony.
right? And people are coming up to me on a Wednesday, dude, you might want to go brush your teeth or just stay away from the supervisor or something. Maybe don't come to work hungover because you stink,
Oh,
So now I'm that guy, right? Now I'm showing up to work hungover enough where I smell. I showered,
yeah.
but it's still, So now I'm a forklift driver and I get in an accident. I hit a rack and I dented it pretty good. I got in a legit accident. I was totally sober. There was no issue with that. But because of that, with such a being like a big corporate company, that on mandatory drug tests. You crash into something, they got to test you.
Mhm.
So this happens on a Friday at 4:00. This place I'm supposed to test at is closed. So they're like, you'll have to do the drug test on Monday. I'm like, all right. But I'm thinking, well, what really sucks about that is I have my close friends in Nashville that are still in the band coming to Tunica to play at a casino called the Gold Strike Casino. And I had plans to go out and see them Sunday night. And I'm like, well, shit, I'm supposed to get like a test on Monday morning. I don't want to show up hungover and test positive for alcohol, even though what's weird is, let's say I did test positive for alcohol on Monday. That doesn't mean that I was drinking on Friday.
Right. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. Like, you're allowed to drink on the weekend anyhow.
Right. But in my mind, it's a total, party kill, buzz kill for me.
Don't worry about it.
So I'm worried about it. And I'm like, you should do the right thing and not drink. But you want to go see your friends. So as a typical alcoholic does, I'll still go and I'll behave. I'll just have a few drinks, say hello, and roll out. Well, yeah, right. So that anxiety fuels more drinking, which fuels more anxiety, which fuels more drinking. So I'm out partying. Next thing I know, it's 3 a.m. I'm playing blackjack with my friends, and I'm supposed to be, in order for me to get to work on time from where I'm staying, I got to get up at like 6, So here it is 3 a.m. and I'm obviously not going to drive. I say obviously, but I decided to not drive that night. And I crashed on my buddy's hotel room floor. And that was like the lowest moment. I'm like, dude, you're in trouble at work. You're wasted, hungover, or you're drunk on the floor of a casino hotel room. And you're going to have to call out of work again. Not only are you calling out of work, but now you're dodging this drug test that you're supposed to take. And man, my world just collapsed around me. This is the pivotal moment.
Yeah.
And it was miserable. I called out, just laying there and just like, what are you doing with your life? What are you doing? Buddy wakes up and they were done. The band was leaving. They're all leaving. So he leaves the hotel room at like 10 o'clock. Hey man, the room's good till noon. You can hang here if you want. All right, man. Love you, buddy. See you later. Say bye to the guys for me. And I plan on just chilling in the room. Well, as soon as he shut that door and I was alone, the walls caved in on me. And by this time, I knew all well about depression, and I still do. But this was when, the suicidal thoughts start trickling in. And I'd already had them for years. But it's a little serious at this point. I just know something's different.
Yeah.
And it freaks me out enough to call my therapist. So by this time, I'd been seeing the same guy for a couple years, and texted him, man, I need to come in today. Can I talk to you? He's like, are you okay? I'm like, not really. He's like, all right, come in at noon. So the man gave me his lunch break. So I keep it together. I'm smoking, I'm chain smoking.
Yeah.
But I feel like, okay, I'm not at work. That part is over with. I know I'm going to my therapist. So that's making me feel a little better. So I'm like, all right, I'm kind of calming down a little bit, even though the panic is still pretty high. I finally get in his office. I sit in front of him, and he's like, "Man, what's bothering you?" And then the floodgates open. Like
Yeah.
the stereotypical, nervous breakdown where snot's coming out of your eyeballs, right?
I had one of those. I relate to that. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all full on. Can't control yourself. I'd never experienced that then, before then, or since.
Yeah.
That was, so obviously my therapist is like, okay. He's like, I got 2 questions for you. Have you had suicidal thoughts? Yes. Okay. Would you agree to go to a facility? Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, take me away. Like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go away. I want to get away from all of this. All the stress about dealing with, my daughter's mom. I'm not going to bury my daughter's mom and get into all that, but there was a lot of problems there. There's work, there's depression, my anxiety, miserable in life. And I was like, please just take me away. So he called the place. They had an available bed. It was a place called Parkwood in Olive Branch, Mississippi. And so this guy, my therapist, takes my keys and drives me there. And then his wife follows us so then he can get a ride back. So so when they admitted me, he gave them my keys. So that way my car would be there. Very cool. Very cool. So, and then, that's the beginning of my 11-week rehab story. So yeah. That happened. I went into rehab on May 19th, 2014, and haven't drank since.
Congratulations.
Yeah. The story continues, though. Anyone that is familiar with rehab, that's a whole other story there, as far as what that experience is like.
Give us some of the key points of what you learned and what you took away from that experience. Was there a spiritual aspect to your recovery as well?
No, it was, I'm a math head, I'm a more
math head, not meth head, right?
No. I need to choose my words better than that. Yeah. No.
Just cocaine, not meth.
Right. Luckily, I didn't discover that stuff or was around it, because I would have tried it. But so
you're logical.
I'm analytical, logical. So that's how I make sense of things.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look back on my my rehab, so I was inpatient for 2 weeks, and that was an adjustment, and I went into a more strict kind of place. It was not a day camp. It wasn't jail, but you're in a tank with a bunch of people all day. You can't go to your room, and you got to ask permission to go take a piss, and you got to, they take your shoelaces, and you take your belt, and all those things. You're not allowed to have a pencil or a pen.
They take your belly button ring. Oh wait, now we're talking about my story.
Yeah. They let me keep mine. That's
cool. They did.
Yeah. But looking back on it, it makes sense. What they're taking your things from you that could hurt somebody.
Right.
But also they're stripping you of all responsibilities. They're making it so they make all the decisions. They line you up for lunch like you're in fucking elementary school. They line you up for your meds. So you go to your little counter and they give you your cup. You know the drill. And anyone listening. But they're doing that to just get that baseline. What's this person's baseline? We're going to strip them of all responsibilities, minus just not fucking killing someone on the inside, so.
That's enough to have to worry about, though.
Yeah, but so it was a weird thing. And You know, you're dealing with a lot of interesting people, you know, to say the least. So this story becomes a little unflattering because, again, here I am trying to do the right thing and learn from mistakes, but I still make a silly decision because I end up bonding with a woman in rehab, and she got out first, and then I got out after her, and within a week she's living with me. Come on, really? You know,
You're not the first or the only.
They preach that, like, do not build relationships with anyone in here. When you're done in here, go. You know, do not call these people. Like, you're in here for a reason for yourself. You need to be selfish right now. This, in your world, it's all about you right now. Work on you, you know, and I didn't. And I guess I was vulnerable because I wanted to help. You know, she was what she was. I think she targeted me in a weird way. I don't want to sound disrespectful, but I felt a little bit of that. Like, she kind of preyed on me a little bit. Like, this guy can probably take care of me out of here, you know?
Subconsciously, we find what we want, right?
Well, it goes both ways. I'm not making it like a gender thing, but so hook, line, and sinker, right? So, and imagine what that relationship was like, right? Like, nice and healthy. You know? So, and it was really for
as
one
all
reason.
rehab relationships are.
Yeah, it was really there for one reason. Let's be real here. And then, of course, she's drinking and doing her drugs immediately. She falls off the wagon and she's causing problems at the house. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Come on, man, get it together. So you got to go. You know, I solved that problem. I was like, try to find a place to go in a week. You got to be out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And I took care of that. So I wasn't taking care of myself. By this time, I'm on 3 medications. I'm on Lamictal, that is a mood stabilizer, Lexapro, I think everyone knows Lexapro, antidepressant, and lithium. I'm on lithium. They diagnosed me bipolar 2, you know,
Yeah.
so there's that whole process. But so I didn't work on myself. I allowed that to creep into my life, which just kind of screwed me up a little bit. And I'm over medicated.
Yeah, that's a lot of powerful drugs at once.
I'm just staring at the wall, you know, like, I'm definitely that guy just drooling on himself, you know, and I was miserable. All the side effects that come along with that, you know, it's just, I was not feeling right. Well, during this time, I'm an outpatient. So I have to go every day to the building next to the inpatient, where you have like 3 hours a day of therapy, group therapy, you know, but now you're allowed to go home. And luckily I might have to add, like, because I'm working at the big warehouse, luckily I have short-term disability. I have good insurance at this point, thank God. So I don't have that to worry about. So I can do these things and not worry about paying my bills. So that's awesome. But as you all know, as anyone knows, you know, I forget the real term. It's when you first start, you fill out the paper, right? Like, your mood 1 to 10, any suicidal thoughts, any thoughts of harming yourself. Yeah. You know, you
like
fill out
the assessment or an evaluation or something.
They call it processing or whatever. Mm-hmm. You know, every day you do this thing. And one day I was just honest on it. I was like, dude, you're having suicidal thoughts again. You know, this is the place to be honest.
Yeah.
This is where you're supposed to say these things. And so I just wrote down a thought I had. I go into the group therapy and I'm just sitting there and someone walks in, Derrick, can I speak with you for a minute? I was like, sure. And I pull out and he's like, I need your keys. I'm like, why? She's like, we have to put you back inpatient. It's like, okay, here we go
You
again.
just fully surrendered to the process at this point. You're like, whatever these people tell me to do, it's like just
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I'm listening.
Which is such a spiritual aspect, really, to just allow. That's huge.
Yeah. So yeah, and yeah, by this time I'm broken in. You tell me to jump, I'm jumping. Plus I had no choice. If I would have fought it, they probably would have called the police, because I admitted to suicidal thoughts. In a facility like that, they have two options: admit you or call the police. They can't let someone just drive off with that. So but I'm cool. I'm like, all right, let's do it. And she literally walked me down the hill to the inpatient, and I had to do it all over again. But this is where everything changed for me. I needed it so bad, because I get in there. Now I'm ready for some fucking business. I'm ready to get some shit done. I'm not doing this again.
Yeah.
No, I'm not doing this again. I'm not fucking around with anybody. I'll be friendly. I'll play dominoes. I'll I'll share my cigarettes. But no, I'm done with this shit. And then now I've seen how it works. So now on my days when I get to see the doctor for meds or all the different plans, now I'm in a way kind of calling the shots a little bit. I'm like, I want to get off this shit. Like, one of these things is I'm on these drugs, and this is how it's making me feel, and it's part of the reason why I'm back in here. And I was like, the lithium has got to go away. Like, I'm done with that. It's just, there's benefit to it, and it does a lot of good for people, but it was over the top for me. Like, and it's like, okay. So I went in ready to work.
Yeah, and empowered. It's like,
well, I mean,
ready to take charge of your life in a good way.
Yeah, I felt like there was no other choice, because I was like, I'm not doing this again.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this again. So so that inpatient lasted 8-9 days, and I was like, there was moments in group therapy when people weren't paying attention. And that was the other problem with rehab, is the majority of the people in there were forced to be in there, whether it's family tossing them in or the government tossing them in.
Yeah.
And they don't give a shit. They're not in there to work.
It's a different vibe.
So this second time, I'm there to work, and I became, a couple times I had to speak up, and I was like, guys, what are we doing here? I'm like, this is my second time in here. I fucked off I guarantee you don't want to come in a second time.
Yeah.
Like, get it together. So I did.
What'd you learn? Like, what are the things that you got out of it that helped you change?
I think just being able to talk all my shit out, in many different ways, whether it's the one-on-one therapy or the group stuff, and just getting drilled in your head, like this is your time to be selfish. Like, it's you, but also you're accountable. This is like, no one, you can't control what people think of you. You can't control what people say. The only thing you can control is how you react. You can control yourself. So there was like accountability. They're drilling in your head. But also, like, fuck everybody else. Anyone that triggers you, anyone that's in your life that is a trigger or is not going to be in line with this change for you,
yes,
then they're not for you anymore.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be done with them. So it's reassuring. So those all kind of bundled up, but also I think I'm just finally fed up with myself too. I'm like, I'm done with this shit. Like
Yeah.
So then I go back to the outpatient, and more focused, doing better. Getting off some of the meds definitely helped. It just kind of like decompressed me a little bit, right? All
Yeah.
this bipolar medicine just like squashes you, you know? So then I'm like, well, what are you going to do when this is done? Like, part of the therapy now in this phase for me, in this outpatient phase, is, you know, you got to do what you want to do. What do you love? Like, you need to make yourself happy. No one else is going to make you happy.
Yeah.
You can't get married hoping the spouse makes you. Can't be in a relationship. You have to be happy. What your core, you need to work on your core. So I'm like, well, what makes me happy? Well, being a musician makes me happy. So I kept thinking about it, and I'm like, you know, I have to make a switch now. This is the time to make the change. So I decide that when I'm done with therapy, with the program at the end of the 11 weeks, when I go back to work, I'm going to give my 2-week notice and connect with by this time I'd already connected with one of my Nashville bands and contacts, and I'm going to go back on the road where I'm going to surround myself with alcohol. Yay, right? Stupid, but I never drank. I never drank again, and found this balance of doing what I love, playing in multiple bands, you know, a couple little bands that put me on the road. You know, you go off for a weekend, you come back. I'm not leaving weeks anymore, you know. So I'd get my butt to Nashville, meet up with my band, go play Wisconsin, come home, and I go back to Memphis, then I have a week. I was driving Uber, driving Lyft, you know, hosting trivia nights in restaurants. So I was just, one year I had like 10 W-9s for taxes. You know, it was just, I was a side hustle machine.
Yeah.
You know, like, but again, it all goes back to, you know, music's priority number one. Well, 1A, my daughter Skylar's number one, but for the sake of being able to do that, I do these other jobs and just manage to balance all of that out. And again, this is a pivotal moment, the going to my therapist, going to rehab, the whole thing, but I don't really know what really caused the trigger to put the light switch down and make it so I never drank again. But it worked. Something in that process in those 11 weeks clicked with me. And now I'm going to be 8 years sober in May, you know, and it's
what?
great.
I think that's okay. And I think that's like the type of story that we don't hear enough of is I kept going, I kept trying, repetition, consistency, people saying the same things over and over again, me finally getting a little piece here and a little piece there and a little piece there, and all of that collectively adding up to create what worked for me, right?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times, like, we hear stories that are like mine, where it was like, I had a freaking spiritual awakening and everything changed, right? Which mine is like the least common story. And then people think that if theirs didn't happen like mine, that something was wrong with their recovery, or that, you know, it'll never work for them because they're not having this major, like, one epiphany moment that's changing everything at one time. And that's majority not how it is for anybody. Like, mostly when you're like mine, it's because you were really, really bad and about to die, and God had to snatch you up. But like most people, like, that didn't get to like the brink of death, have like a much more relaxed experience where they just keep showing up and just keep going back to the therapist and just keep trying again and getting a piece and a piece and a piece.
Yeah, you know, I never really became an AA type of person. You know, I don't mean to disparage it in any way. It saved billions of lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
I tried, and it just wasn't my thing. You know, I'm a one-on-one type of person, so I've been seeing the same therapist that took me to rehab. What's funny is I just had my weekly with him today. I still see the same guy. It's been 10 years now. But I bring that up because when it comes to AA or NA, you know, they always preach 90 and 90, 90 visits in 90 days. You know, they encourage that because it's the going back.
Mm-hmm.
It's the repetition. It's that rhythm. It's the building the habit.
Yeah.
And that's why they say 90 and 90. It's like, that's 3 months of going to AA every day, hearing other people's stories, telling your story. My choice was the therapist. That worked for me. But look, I'm still going back 10 years later. So that's part of it too. It gives me that platform every week to just, talk about the stresses, So yeah, if anyone's listening or watching this, that's kind of in the early stages, whatever you feel is your best way to get your therapy, stick with it. Make it part of your life. You can't go to therapy and you're not fixed in 3 weeks. You're not going to the doctor with a broken finger and they put a splint on it and it eventually heals. This is something we live with for the rest of our life. So it's important to stay on top and have that outlet.
Yes, it is. So when along your journey, did you acquire any like favorite quotes, sayings, or mottos or mantras that you kind of used with that same premise of like repetition that you would just say over and over to yourself to like keep you going?
I used to know the Serenity prayer, give me the strength to control what I can control, not try to control others. I'm butchering it. I bet
Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference of just for today.
Yeah, I love that. Now, it's not a mantra like it is for you, and I butchered it, but it makes so much sense.
You got from it though.
Yeah, it's again, it goes back to the rehab. Like, hey, like you can't control what people say. You can only control your reactions. So focus on what you can control. And then the third one's that's the key, is having that self-awareness and wisdom to see it. And I think that also helped me too, to truly see how I had some codependency mixed in with all this. I cared too much about what people thought of me. I was always worried about what people thought of me, insecurities, the whole thing. So finally, I guess I gained that wisdom to know, like, there's no reason to worry about other people and what they think of you, but so yeah, it's all these years later, now for in case anyone's listening or watching again, that I can speak to alcohol, and you just quit and you're struggling with that, don't expect, it's not a fairy tale overnight. I learned the hard way, in a way where I felt like, oh, I quit drinking, so my life is going to be amazing. You got to work at it. You got to keep working at it. And that first year or two, you're just trying to figure out how to cope. You're trying to use tools that have been given to you to try to cope with, all right, well, I walked out of rehab and I was sensitive. I was still just as anxious as ever, still dealing with my depression. All the problems, all those problems are still there. Reality kicks back in. None of that changes. Life moves on. How are you going to cope with it? But I promise you, if you're fighting, you keep going back. And after that 2-year mark for me was when I was like, that's when my growth started. I had more confidence to try different things. And then my personal story is, I ended up starting my own business, and none of this is, and now I have a successful podcast production agency that's 3 years old, and God, there's a million stories of all that. But the point of the story is none of what I have now exists without what happened 7+ years ago, but you want this, like I wanted this 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And it took me a minute to realize, no, it takes work. I had a great core of friends. Those are the ones I could trust, even though they still drank. I had to teach myself, well, they're not going to change their life for you.
Yeah.
If we're all out at dinner and they want to have a beer, they're grown men. They can have a damn beer if they want.
Right.
So cope with being around it, but don't feel like you're being disrespected. Like I used to take it personally. How dare they drink around me? And I look back on that and I tell that guy to fuck off. Like, no, it's there.
Right.
You know,
We all get choice.
Yeah. If there was someone in my life at that time that would drink around me, but then get in my face and try to that I should have a beer with them, fuck
Right.
you.
That's disrespectful.
You're the one that goes away. You're the one that I'm cutting off, But so it's those vulnerabilities and those sensitivities that I dealt with. And then but that all just starts going away. You keep going back and trying to get better at it.
100%. So where are you going from here? What do you think is next for you in your journey?
I want to buy a house. I'm getting to a place now where I'm earning enough income where that could be a reality. I'm trying to clear off some debt before doing that. So, I still have debt that probably dates back from when I'm 18, right?
I just got hit with that student loan debt now that got my degree finally.
That whole part of my life where I was the hustle machine and working all these different jobs, that's all well and good, but it's hand to mouth, feast, famine, and a big chunk of old credit card debt that I've consolidated 2 times around was life. It's like I'm barely scraping by. Oh shit, I need new brakes. Damn it. Credit card, and that type of stuff that build up on me. So I'm trying to clear that up. I made
such a huge part of recovery that I don't think gets talked about enough, that literally like anybody who struggled with mental health or addiction or anything, you get in your financial situation is effed up when you finally get back to reality. And now you're like, holy crap, now I have to pay for like all of the manic shopping or the drinking binges at 3 a.m. where I decided to buy everybody around, or like just dumb decisions that you made under the influence. And it wrecks your credit.
I wish I could get the $7,000 I spent for my DUI right now. That'd be nice. That would pay off my debt, right?
Yeah.
Continuing my business, continuing it to grow. Just recently, last year and a half or so, I became full custody of my daughter. So now that's a whole other episode, Rachel. So now, I moved to a good place that has a good school. So now my focus is getting her through high school. She's in 8th grade now. So okay, I'm dedicated to that. I'm off the road. I don't play music anymore. I actually kind of retired in a way. There's no pension when you're a musician, but it's basically just like, I'm hanging it up for a while. I'm in a place where I don't need it for income. So that was nice. So I'm a businessman now, trying to grow it. I'd love to just get a nice house and just kind of, start building that future, because I'm just throwing money away with renting apartments, all my life. So that would be I guess, growing up more. I'm 44 years old and I'm finally in my early mature 30s. You know what I'm saying? Like I kind of fell behind a little bit, but when I was 30, I was going on 17. Yeah. That's how, I was an idiot when I was 30.
That's all of us though, emotionally stunted. And then when we start to get better, we have to, kind of play the catch up game, and that's all right. I think that it's awesome, all you've been through and all you've overcame and how you got there, and your persistence and your honesty. I think that it's so brave and vulnerable to talk about suicidal thoughts and suicidal ideation as part of our stories. I talk about that frequently because it needs to be said. People need to hear it. People feel like they're the only one who's ever thought about suicide and it feels so lonely and dark, and you're just not, people, you're not the only one. Life is hard. This human condition is hard. And then when you stack mental illnesses and addictions and traumas and all these things on top of it, like suicidal ideation is one of the normal consequences of that. So yeah, talk about it with your therapist. Like, get help, medications help, therapies help. There is things to do to get better. And
I still have it. I still
Yeah.
have that to this day. It's like my boogeyman. I
Mhm.
call it. It's just that thought that creeps in when I'm down and low, and that's why I keep going back, because I never want to put myself in a vulnerable situation where where I'm susceptible more than other days, whatever, like sometimes if you stop going back, then these things can kind of creep in without even realizing it, but I'll say this, and I don't mean this to be a shameless plug, it might sound like it, but when you talked about moving forward, well, this channel that I had you on yesterday,
Yeah, that was the next question.
so that's morphed and organically become that place for me to do my contribute in my way of being vulnerable, open, and telling my story in ways and hope that other people can relate and help. So that's why that was a quick turnaround for me, where I didn't have a channel. I for years never wanted a channel. I didn't want to be in front of a camera. Well, because of my career in business and podcasting, I got more comfortable being in front of a camera. Decided to start a channel. Was gifted a channel from my mother's audience, so I have a pretty active channel that's monetized. So I was like, all right, well, let's have fun with it. And I'm doing random videos and talking about stories on the road and not getting too personal, right? And then I started getting a little more personal, talking about my stress, talking about my anxiety. And then the engagement was there and more encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, all right, well, now I'm finding my place. I want this channel to be about mental health. And then now I just, did a few videos talking about my rehab, talking about my alcoholism, getting deeper and deeper as a way to do my due diligence. I feel like now I have a responsibility. If I want to help people. Enough years in, like you have a book, you have coaching, you have the clout and the history and the experience to really be able to help people. So I feel is that new thing for me. So that's why you're on it. You're my first guest. And honestly, this is the first podcast that I'm on to get my story.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
All
we got to be each other's firsts.
All the other podcasts I've been on have been about my, entrepreneurial story, which is great too. Mm-hmm. But so that's a big one this year, is growing that channel to get more audience, try to get a younger audience. My audience is, not to sound disrespectful, but they're a little older. Mm-hmm. But they engage with this because the comments I get from them is that helped me a lot, or I wish my son could hear this. Well, share it. My daughter had dealt with this. I lost my grandson because of that. And
everybody knows somebody that struggles with addiction or mental illness, like everybody.
Yeah. And people engage with authenticity. So that's why, Rachel, you do what you do. That's why I'm finally breaking in and making it a 2020 deal for me to grow this channel as a way it helps me get confidence in my life. It's just as much for me as it is what I'm hoping to help other people with.
Of course.
But now I want to add more voices, so that's why, I reached out to you, Rachel, to have you on the channel. And I want to bring other stories in and to give that person an opportunity to share their story, give that person an opportunity to promote their platforms. You want to talk about your book and all that stuff. And it's so fun, isn't it, to just like hang out on your platforms and get to have these real conversations that just like magic happens in them. I think is so cool. Well, it's the networking part. Now, my other podcasts and all this other stuff I do for business, it's all that networking, but it's business, and I can tell my business story, my entrepreneurial story. That's great. But there's always that sense of having to pitch. You're in it for hopefully to get a new client, right? Like that's why you do all that. But now I finally am building a platform for myself to network with people like yourself that that are in this space that we can, talk about our lives, which is very interesting to me.
We can just kind of be about pure service together.
Yeah, and hopes to help other people, because people relate to that vulnerability and authenticity. So now it's like, all right, let's have some fun with this. so that's definitely I'm going to grow the channel probably before buying the house. Let's say that.
Well, maybe the channel will buy your house.
There you go. There you go.
There you go. You said it's monetized, right?
Let's get another 2 million subscribers. We'll see what happens. But no, I have a channel that has reach too. So that's also where I felt like I had some responsibility. I'm like, all right, what are you going to do? I was gifted a monetized channel in 25 days,
Yeah, that's incredible.
Story behind that. What are you going to do with it? There's reason to work on it because I want to make some money. There is that. But what are you going to use it for? You have this powerful tool. What are you going to use it for? And I'm like, well, I relate most with mental health because of my story, like you just heard. So let's start talking about that stuff, and I hope it grows. Right now I have almost 5,000 subscribers. Let's get it to 10. Anyone listening or watching this, my name is the channel name, Derrick Michaud. DerrickMichaud. You have the link now, Rachel. So
everything will be in the description. And you guys have to go watch our interview where Derrick interviews me. So you have to go and subscribe right now. Yeah. And do you have Facebook? Do you have Instagram? Do you have anywhere else, email address, other places where people might be able to hook up with you?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Derrick Michaud and then the number 1. And then I have a Facebook group that is, again, my name. I haven't thought of a cool podcast name maybe for this stuff, but I'm not quite as branded as you are, Rachel. You got your
very branded.
But in that group, there's 1,700 people in there that really, again, coming from an audience that was kind of gifted to me from my mother. Ironically, my mom's the YouTuber that helped me with all this. But I'd like to grow it with a different audience, organic audience that's coming to there to maybe have more conversations with mental health. People that want to engage in the group. So you're more than welcome to come there and hang out there, and then the YouTube channel. So yeah, and then you can find my business stuff. Go to shelbyroadproductions.com, and you can see my whole business side, all my platforms over there to get. That's very much part of my personality. You learn a lot about me if you want to go see all that stuff too. But my channel is where I just put it all out there. So
if somebody wants help producing their podcast, you got them, right?
Yep, we got them.
All right.
That's what we do. That's what we do.
All right, beautiful. Thank you so much for being on the show. I had an amazing time hearing your story. I feel so super connected to you now. This was awesome. Thank you for letting me be on yours, and I hope that we can do some more projects together in the future.
Yeah, a collaboration with you would be super fun. Absolutely.
Sweet. All right, everybody, that's been From Rock Bottom to Badass.